Aha! We're back. Good. Hello, hello, hello. Feels like it's been a little while, but we are back. We are live. Minimal connection issues, which is always nice. Just going to quickly change the level of the microphone. Beautiful. God, it does feel like a little while since we've had a stream, doesn't it? But we are there now. We are ready and raring to go. The Dutch Grand Prix, 10 races until the end of the season. A battle for the championship still in contention. It is all coming up Millhouse. It does feel like just everything is starting to come together quite nicely in terms of the championship and in terms of the Formula One season. And we are indeed back. Hello, Antonio. Hello, Sean. How's it going? Freddie's in the chat. Psyduck's here. How are we all feeling? Sarah and Sally, of course. Kelly's in there. We are back indeed for 10 more Grand Prix. We'll dump straight into it, I think, because there's a lot of things that sort of happened over the course of the summer break that are worth having a chat about. I feel like the channel's getting back to full flow once again. Hopefully you've been enjoying the more regular content coming out on the channel. New video came out yesterday, doing very well. If you do want to help out a little bit more, you can click the link in the description down below. If you haven't seen it, it is well worth watching, in my opinion, where I simulate the season 1,000 times. Let me see if multi-viewer is still doing its thing. Did have a little practice during free practice 3 earlier, but you never know. Here we go. Yeah, we're looking good. We're looking good. Beautiful. How have we all been doing? How have we all been feeling? How have we missed Formula One? I've sort of missed Formula One and also not missed Formula One, I think, in equal amounts. It's been a hectic few months for me. It feels like it's now all coming together, though. You know, we've got regular content back on the channel, brand new job starting in a couple of days' time. Formula One is back. Like, I really can't complain about anything at this moment in time. It does feel absolutely brilliant to be back live with you. The first thing I do want to bring up, and the thing I think we have to talk about before we talk about really getting back into the Formula One racing itself, is indeed Sergio Perez and Valtteri Bottas joining the grid once again. Kelly just beat me to it. Very excited for Bottas and Perez together and back on the grid in the same team. And I think some people thought I was a little bit negative on this because I said it was boring. But I think boring can be good sometimes. Like, I would say I'm quite a boring person, to be honest with you. So I don't think boring is necessarily a negative when it comes to a Formula One driver pairing. And I think Cadillac played it safe. They did the right thing. Yeah, they did the good thing by making sure that they got 2 drivers locked in for a couple of seasons. And I think when I was kind of looking at this, I made a few notes on it. I was going to go live, but I didn't end up going live for it just because bit of a hectic day. But it does feel like this is exactly what they needed, right? So in my notes, where did I put it? Bottas and Perez to Cadillac. I think, you know, yes, we all kind of like had our out there driver pairings that we were thinking of happening, right? So I was like, oh, maybe an Andrew Dunn, Alex Dunn. I don't know where Andrew came from. An Alex Dunn maybe into that seat, or, you know, a Felipe Dragovic would be quite an exciting driver to go into that new team. But I think Cadillac played it safe and played it reasonably well, because getting Bottas, getting Perez, Bottas on the grid 12 years, Perez on the grid 14 years, you're getting nearly 30 years of experience from these 2 drivers, over 25 years of experience from these 2 drivers coming into a brand new Formula One team, and they can just go straight in and know exactly what they're looking for. Like, and I know they've got, you know, very experienced people behind the scenes at Cadillac as well, and they've been picking up people from various different Formula One organizations to put that team together. But I think when you've got two spearheads, two drivers in the way that they've got, and they can bring so much experience from so many different teams. Like, they will have seen exactly what went well and what went badly for all of the different teams that they've worked with throughout their Formula One careers. Interesting that they've also never crossed paths with one another. They just feel like a very solid driver pairing that someone would have picked up at some point. But I suppose from Bottas's side of things, he was always on the Mercedes side of the grid, going through Williams, then through Mercedes for a very long time, and then obviously stepping into the Sauber team, then using Ferrari engines at the time because they were Alfa Romeo, weren't they? And then Sergio Perez kind of has a little bit of everything, you know. Sergio Perez was a Ferrari junior. He was then in the Force India team. He was at McLaren for a year. He then went into the Red Bull setup. Like, he has explored pretty much every single other team that Bottas hasn't been part of. So they have experience in almost every single team on the grid, right, between the two of them. So they can bring so much to this Cadillac franchise. I thought it was interesting that the kind of General Motors and TWG Global guys who are behind the scenes at Cadillac as well also stepped in to say that they would have preferred to have two experienced drivers in there. And I think, again, that would have been a big turning point for them. Oh, I've opened 2 tube lives. I don't know what that means. Oh, yeah, I'll have a look. But yeah, 2 experienced drivers. As I say, what are they? I think are they both in the top 10 in terms of appearance makers? Sergio Perez will definitely be in the top 10. I imagine Valtteri Bottas is in and around, and maybe like 12th or 13th, actually, in terms of appearances made in Formula One history. So can't get much more experience from that. I think it's a bit weird in that Sergio Perez can go in straight away, and I think they needed a driver to actually go in straight away off the bat because they have been producing this car behind the scenes. We know that Andretti and Cadillac and all of those people have been working on a car even before they got permission to be on the Formula One grid. They were already putting together a Formula One car. Like, that's how dedicated the Cadillac team is to making the grid at the beginning of next season. And as Valtteri Bottas has said in a few interviews, the most important thing right now is just turning up in Australia and seeing what you get, right? Like, having a car that is actually functioning and on the grid and ready to race for the Australian Grand Prix next season is by far and away the biggest thing that they need to focus on. But beyond that, you then have 2 drivers who can start to push you in the right direction in so many different aspects. Like, they need to decide whether they, you know, are really focused on one lap pace. Are they the kind of team that really wants to stand out in qualifying and maybe lose out a little bit in race pace in terms of that? We've seen some teams do that in the past where they do just up their qualifying pace in the hopes that track position will get them through the race when it comes to the Grand Prix. Or do they really focus on race pace, and do they focus on actually how do we develop a car that can be really, really solid on its tires, or look after its tires in a certain way that allows us to thrive versus other cars on the track? Because even Haas, who are the second youngest team on the grid going into 2026, have now been part of the Formula One grid for a decade. Like, they are so far behind all of the rest of the teams on the grid. I think having these 2 drivers there, and they can say, you know, this is the feedback I would give on this. This is how the simulators worked in this team. This is how the simulators worked in that team. This is how they brought data together in there and there. And they can put all of that together. I think Cadillac have set themselves up for a really solid opening couple of seasons. Are they going to be quick straight off the bat? I don't think so. I think we're looking at a team that is likely to come 11th in the championship in 2026 and possibly even 2027 and 2028. You know, even Audi have been talking about recently how they're aiming to win races in 5 years' time. So they're looking at 2030 as the Audi opportunity to win races. And that is the kind of longevity that you have to have in Formula One, and the sort of building, the ramp up to winning Grand Prix is a very, very long ramp, unfortunately, for a lot of the teams that are entering and a lot of the teams that want to get involved in the Formula One sphere. The only issue I can see with these two drivers personally is they are going to be both 36 years old going into the 2026 season. And obviously I've just praised that incredible amount of experience and how they could do that. But I don't know if it's a sort of weird thing in terms of their contracts. They're both on multi-year deals, so I'd imagine they've both got 2-year deals. I wouldn't imagine they've gone like 3, 4, 5 years for these guys, because they are getting towards the end of their careers. And I don't know whether they'll be in a really awkward situation in a couple of years' time where both of these drivers want to be able to sort of move away from the sport, and then they have to replace both of them at the same time. I think the perfect thing for them would be to be able to replace one of these drivers, have another couple of years, and then replace the other one afterwards. 36 isn't that old. I know it's not that old, but for Formula One drivers, it's a little bit old. It's a little bit of an awkward one. I know that Fernando Alonso and Lewis Hamilton are continuing on, and Kimi Räikkönen the same, but most Formula One drivers, I should say, get to this point and it's kind of getting towards the end of their career. So I think that's the only thing I would say is, okay, we've got these two drivers here and they're going to be the main two drivers moving forwards. What are Cadillac going to be doing in terms of junior drivers? Because I think that's a really difficult one to buffer. You know, Haas, again, we have to kind of look at Haas as the building block here because they're the youngest team on the grid. Haas still don't have a junior program for themselves. They just, license themselves out to Ferrari drivers effectively. And if Ferrari want a particular driver in a seat, we saw it with Mick Schumacher for a little while. We saw it with now Ollie Behrman. Haas are able to sort of get their younger drivers through Ferrari. But I think Cadillac, they'll want to have their own junior program. And that's something that takes also a little bit of time to develop and a little bit of time to get right. So I would like to see them pick up a third driver. And it's difficult to know who to go for because, Oscar Piastri, I know, had a year out at Alpine. So do they pick up a third driver that is almost like, I want to say, again, like Alex Dunn is the one that comes to mind straight off the bat, or a Fornaroli. Maybe they pick an F2 driver like that as their third driver, or as like a trainee driver for the next couple of seasons and kind of build him in-house ready to take one of these two spots. I don't know. That's the one issue I do have with this driver lineup, is I don't think there's any longevity in it. This is not going to be the Cadillac driver pairing, or I would certainly hope this isn't the Cadillac driver pairing in 3-4 years time, because maybe one of these drivers, but I really wouldn't want to see either of these drivers still racing for Cadillac in, say, 2029, 2030, because I just think that would be all over the place and it would show that they haven't really planned for the long haul when it comes to those two drivers. But for now, first couple of years, I think it's a perfect driver lineup. I think it is boring, but I think it's good boring. It's like, you thought about it, you've gone through all the options, you got Valtteri Bottas, safe pair of hands, Sergio Perez, safe pair of hands as well. There isn't really an American driver that there was fit the mold like they could. And therefore, I think Sergio Perez, with the American audience, brings so much American attention. I think he's absolutely perfect to slot in there as well. So I do really like this driver pairing, even if it is boring. But I'm glad that you guys also think, they could have done something a little bit more, could have done something a little bit less. It's where we are with Cadillac right now. And again, I'm not one of these people that thinks Cadillac is going to be winning races in 2026 or 2027. So it's good for the trajectory of the team and sort of building on it for now. But I do want them to get a third driver or a test driver, or start building some links with some younger drivers in mind, because I don't know where they go with it, right? Because Aston Martin, they could build like a Honda relationship there, but they're going to be using Ferrari engines. They're not going to get Ollie Behrman in a few years' time because Ollie Behrman seems destined for a Ferrari seat. So, who's the next Ferrari driver they could maybe try and wangle a relationship with, possibly? Or maybe they're looking in another direction because obviously in 2028, they're going to be building their own engines anyway. So what kind of relationships can they build with the other teams whilst also not having that engine relationship that they're going to have for the foreseeable future? When will he leave F1 permanently? Not that I'm looking forward to it. Who's this? As in these two? I mean, not for at least another couple of years. Bottas on 247 F1 entries, 246 race starts. Not sure where that does rank. Off the top of my head, I want to say that's like 12th or 13th in the like rankings, because you're looking at like the 300s right at the top. I think Perez would be a bit more than that, and I think Perez is like 6, 7, 8 in that region in terms of drives made. So I think Bottas kind of that next chunk below. But I mean, both of them are going to get at least another 50 races, maybe just under 45, 46 races in Formula One guaranteed over the next couple of years. So they're both going to be right near the top of the standings when it comes to experience within Formula One. Let's move away from them, though. Talked about Cadillac more than enough, I feel like, there, with a little 10-minute chat on that driver pairing. Let's take a look at the driver standings. We have Oscar Piastri, 284 points after the summer break. Looking very good. The McLaren car's looking the strongest at the minute this weekend, although Aston Martin are seemingly the closest competitor. I don't know if anyone else had that on their predictions board. Yeah, I've got a little while to get your predictions in. We'll do the predictions tomorrow before the Grand Prix. If you want to get involved in the predictions, there is a community post every single race week Monday where you can get your predictions in formally. Then I tabulate them and go through them just before the race tomorrow. So you've still got time to adapt your predictions if you want to. I feel like you have to get them in a little bit earlier, though. I always take into account the people who've done it on like Saturday afternoon. I'm like, well, can't really be giving you some points for making predictions after the fact, can we? But I do think it's going to be a very interesting weekend. Lando does indeed look very, very quick. In fact, do I have their... I was looking at their free practice 2 times, I want to say. Let me see if I can find it. Here we go. Oh, no, it's their free practice 3 times. Let me see if I can share this with you. Bada bing. Nope, wrong one. There we go. Get rid of that preview. We'll get to that in a second. But these, if we get the fastest times from them, like, it is very tight indeed. Lando Norris was quicker than by 2.5 tenths of a second from Oscar Piastri in free practice 3. It was even closer in free practice 2. And I think we're just looking at this point in the season as to like what kind of tracks suit which kind of drivers. Like, I do think Zandvoort is a Lando Norris track. If I had to choose between Lando Norris and Oscar Piastri, I know it's easy to say in hindsight now with 3 free practice sessions done, but it does just feel like a Lando style of track. It's very flowing, and it's about getting that rhythm right, especially through the middle sector. And that is kind of where Lando Norris has been a little bit better off, particularly sort of around here, to sort of exit of turn 10. If you watch Lando Norris's exits of turn 10 compared to Oscar's, Lando just seems so much more planted inside of that car. I think that's something that Oscar actually in free practice 3 managed to do a little bit better, which is interesting because this is usually where Lando Norris has been quicker. And I think that was the data I was looking at from free practice 2. Lando kind of gained a lot of his time through this part of the lap. But actually, Oscar has clearly looked at that from free practice 2 yesterday, maybe adapted the car a little bit, and is now absolutely flying through this sort of exit of turn 10 through to turn 11 part of the track, but has lost out in the rest of it. Lando Norris through this middle sector where it is that kind of flow of corners and you don't really slow down at any point inside of these Formula One cars. You literally just sort of carry the momentum beautifully through all of those curves. Lando Norris just has an ability to do that. And I think Lando Norris has more experience of that inside of this McLaren car as well. I think Lando Norris as well is carrying a little bit more momentum after the summer break. You could say he was a little bit lucky with a few of the wins that he got before the summer break, but he did win 3 out of the 4 Grand Prix before we broke at the beginning of August. So Lando Norris carrying a little bit more momentum, clearly better at this style of track. 9 points, though, being the gap does mean even if Lando Norris does win here this weekend, I feel like Oscar Piastri is almost guaranteed to come in second place because the McLaren cars do just look so strong. So still wouldn't take the lead of the championship, would close it into 2 points, but with 9 races to go and over 250 points still to play for, that is a considerable margin that still has to be played out, and neither of them will really sort of think, oh, well, if I lose here today, this weekend, I'm out of the championship running, because it could easily go either way. Norris dominated practice. Lead Q1, 2Q. Before Piastri pips into pole. Oh, that would be something. I want to say, was I looking at free practice 2? I was definitely looking at that middle. Yeah, see, even here, in free practice 2, Norris just a little bit swifter through this, getting out of turn 10 down to turn 11. Although Piastri had a little bit more pace, maybe he got a little bit of a draft going down towards the start-finish line. But Norris just seems to be able to carry the speed of this. Yeah, that was an interesting one as well. Obviously, the Aston Martins... Oops, didn't mean to click Nico Hülkenberg. The Aston Martins looking really solid as well. If we go to free practice 3, less so. But free practice 2, Alonso and Stroll were ridiculously quick. Let's here we go. Free practice 2. Oh, Alonso much quicker than Lance Stroll, actually. I didn't think the gap was that big. I thought Stroll... Oh, no, Stroll was free practice 1 where he was quick. I'm all over the place this weekend. But Alonso's lap, a 109.977. I think outside shout, Aston Martin getting through into Q3. Maybe stirring the pot. I feel like Russell will still be quick. Verstappen, obviously, his home race, he'll still be quick. But I could see it where... Maybe we have a Fernando Alonso second row. I don't think he's going to get on the front row. Second row Fernando Alonso, would we take? I think so. It would definitely spice up the Drivers' Championship as well, especially if Aston Martin do get a solid points haul in this first Grand Prix after the summer break. Fernando Alonso and Lance Stroll both on 26 points. I think it's so interesting how Hülkenberg and Alonso have absolutely rocketed throughout the season so far, you know, or throughout sort of the second quarter of the season, because let's face it, Fernando Alonso and Nico Hülkenberg's season didn't really start until Spain. And they've just absolutely flown up the championship, now sitting in 9th and 11th. We know that Albon is in a Williams car that isn't going to be upgraded at any points throughout the rest of the season. So best of the rest is certainly going to be a little bit of a tangle between, I would say, Albon, Hülkenberg, Alonso. You'd maybe say it's a little bit rude not to include Ocon there, but I just don't think the Haas car is going to be the fastest midfield car. Oscar is winning this year. I did put a community post out because I'd done the video. Who won that? Should we have a little look? Oh, wow. I hadn't actually looked at this. It was a lot more one-sided than I was expecting. Goodness gracious me. This is over on the community tab. If you haven't voted, you still can. But 14,000 votes on the poll, which is pretty decent for us. Very decent for us. 14,000 votes on the poll. Lando Norris, 30% of Formula One fans think Lando Norris is going to take the win at the end of the season. 70% of fans going for Oscar Piastri. So that's where we sit right now in terms of the community standings. Oh, what app was I referring to? Do you mean when I was showing these graphs? This is GP Tempo. Used to be F1 Tempo, I think. Yeah, it used to be F1 Tempo, now GP Tempo. Beautiful, beautiful graphs. Use them all the time for when I'm like writing videos and stuff. Really worth checking out. But they are very, very useful. They only come out after the fact, though. So, like the session, for instance, for qualifying, it will probably go live like an hour or so after qualifying finishes. So, what are my predictions for qualifying places? Well. Ooh, what are we missing? There we go. I would say, I think it's going to be really tight, you know, because it's quite a short track. Plus the fact that we have the McLarens looking very good. I think the McLaren's going to be front row. I think we're going to have at least one Aston Martin on the second row, you know. So maybe an Aston Martin and it's George Russell versus Verstappen for kind of third, fourth, fifth, isn't it? Ferraris, I think, could really be quite out of it. I think the Ferraris are kind of ones to watch if you're looking for some masochism. Is that the right word? Maybe. Sadism? One or the other. I think Max could win this race. Absolutely carries the team. The worst car's home race. Oh yeah, certainly. Max, you can never really count out of a Grand Prix victory, especially as the weather tomorrow is looking mixed. And I think whenever the weather is mixed, you always have to have Max in contention. Like, I think you'd be silly not to. But we are about to get underway. 18 minutes on the clock. We're seeing drivers into cars. It's going to be a lot of traffic in this first round of qualifying as well. For now, let's get into the predictions. Which 5 drivers could you see falling out of qualifying at this point? So you've got to choose 5 drivers who are going to drop out in Q1. I'm going to go... I like too many of these drivers on the grid right now. It used to be so easy. It used to be like, well, you can just pick the 2 Hasses, Latifi. You already got your 5 sort of running. Now you've got to really choose a 5, and it is properly difficult to do so. I think the Aston Martin's good. I think Alex Albon might fall out. I think the Alpines, yeah. But Gasly is usually pretty swift around here. So like Colapinto, Albon, Colapinto. It feels bad to chuck in like a Bortoletto or a Behrman, but it just feels like maybe they are. Watching for a year and a half. Thank you so much, Air Phoenix. And never commented. Get involved. Jump in the chat. Just want to say I love your content. Thank you so much. Content is back up and running as well. We are back. We've actually been producing some videos for the first time in a couple of months. In August, I've got my wall chart to the left of me. In August, we managed to put out a video every single day apart from the bank holiday Monday because I was away, and then the 26th because I was stuck on a train. So if you want content, we literally daily content every single day. We produced something on the channel. And now obviously the 30th and the 31st, we are live today and tomorrow for qualifying and the Grand Prix. Watching while hanging clothes. Nice. Lawson, Colapinto, Ocon, Behrman. You think the Haas are going to drop out? Ooh. Alpine, Behrman, Yuki, Ocon. Yeah, I suppose the Haas cars haven't been... I don't know, I just quite like the Haas drivers. I think my biases come in when we're picking people to drop out in qualifying, because there's so many drivers that I quite like. I'm just sort of like, well, I'd like them to get through, so I don't want to just damn them to falling out. Also, just realised I forgot to do the race control. But don't worry, it is green flags and we are underway. How have I coped with the summer break? It's been really good, actually. I think I needed it. Lots of change going on behind the scenes for me. And therefore, I think I just needed a bit of a reset where I could actually sort out my life, you know. Done a lot of painting, done a lot of hanging curtains, done a lot of putting up shelves. But it was necessary. Boring, but necessary. We have got a few drivers ready to set flying laps, though. Lots of cars out on track already. Some of the big boys still yet to join us. Neither of the McLaren cars out there. George Russell on our picture there, just still in the pits. What are my thoughts on Lance Stroll doing well in practice? Luck or something more? I think just the Aston Martin car looking very solid, very planted. Like, I looked at a side-by-side of Fernando Alonso's flying laps in 2024 versus 2025, and I know it was only a free practice flying lap, but that Aston Martin car just looks so much more planted, and everybody is quicker, right? Like, we're pretty much looking at like the track record here being broken some point during qualifying. Like, it's very, very likely that one of the McLaren cars breaks the lap record, because all of the cars are just so much quicker than they were 2-3 seasons ago. Ollie Behrman coming around the final corner. Having a look at him now. Behrman actually carrying a lot of speed, and a 110.2 from Ollie Behrman is not too shabby at all. It'd be interesting to see what the Ferraris can do, because as I say, I think if there's one team to watch that I'm a little bit worried about, it is the Ferrari duo. Like, but they are putting the lap times in. Charles Leclerc, 4 tenths off Ollie Behrman at the moment. Lewis Hamilton, quickest in the first and second sectors, just coming across the line now and goes to the top of the timing sheets with a 110.2. Ooh! And it's Lance Stroll. I talked him up. It's okay. He's still rolling. He's still rolling. He was in the gravel, but he is still moving. Ooh, that was very, very close indeed. The Aston Martin crew rushing out of the garage. I'm sure Lance Stroll is going to make his way back into the pits. He's in the, oh, there's a bit of damage to the front wing of that Aston Martin car. Hopefully minimal damage to the underside of it. That's the big problem with the gravel traps. I actually like the fact that they have gravel traps, but the big problem that the teams have with the gravel traps is if you do send yourself through one, the damage that you can do to the underside of the car, and of course we know the ground effect of these cars is so important. That is a big hit from Lance Stroll. Just very lucky that he didn't break the front suspension in any way. Like, swiped the nose off of the car, and I think also impacted the rear right-hand side of the car as well as it swung around. Ooh. That is a big crash for him to just be able to carry on from. And they're going to have to check, well, all areas. Oh, and there's a little bit of dirt on the way in there because it's sent up by Max Verstappen, who is now setting a flying lap. Verstappen coming around turn 9 through turn 10 now. Are the green dots on the map the DRS detection points? Yes, they are indeed the DRS detection points. Although not really necessary for qualifying. Could turn them off. but just forgot. Oh, actually, we normally have the sector colors, don't we? Which I've forgotten to do. Settings. Live timings. Track map. There you go. I forgot to do the colors. Oh no, we want DRS zones. We want DRS detection points. There you go. I've taken the DRS detection points off. Apologies. We were still in race format. This is qualifying format. I don't know if that Aston Martin car is going to be in the best of conditions if they do manage to send Lance Stroll back out again. Every time I watch this replay, it feels like a bigger and bigger impact on the side of that Aston Martin car. Like, that is a hefty whack to that green car. But there we go. Engineers just looking at that right-hand side of the car. Lance Stroll is back in the garage, though, and we'll see if he can get back out in 10 minutes' time. Does mean that we haven't got many flying laps in. Only 9 drivers set a flying lap before a few had to abort their flying laps with the yellow flags flying in that middle part of the track. Norris, Piastri, Russell, Stroll, Hadjar, Alonso, Antonelli, Sainz, Albon, Lawson, Bortoletto yet to set flying lap times, as we can see there. Max Verstappen did manage to go to the top of the timing sheets, but Lando Norris looking very swift. Here comes George Russell, 0.3 of a second off of Verstappen. Lando Norris not able to do a purple middle sector, but purple in the first sector from the Brit. Has looked very comfortable inside of that McLaren car. Now running through that banked final corner. Lando Norris carrying the momentum across the start-finish line. And there he is, nearly 0.3 of a second clear of Verstappen, a 1.9.4. Here comes Piastri to be a 1/10.5 off his teammate, but take the purple final sector from him. So it's going to be very tight indeed. Fernando Alonso has been very swift this weekend. Really seems to have found a rhythm inside of that Aston Martin car. He goes 4th fastest, just behind Max Verstappen, but within half a second of the 2 McLaren cars. And we're just waiting now on a few of the drivers to make their way around. Pierre Gasly is just coming around the final corner. Liam Lawson joining him. Franco Colapinto as well. Here comes Carlos Sainz. Oh, the title's wrong. Oops. On the Twitch. Thank you. There you go. Appreciate that, Rock. Esteban Ocon moves up into 14th spot. Yuki Tsunoda now right on the bubble once again. Hulkenberg, Gasly, Colapinto, the 3 drivers down there at the moment. Gabriel Bortoletto yet to set a flying lap time, but coming around the final sector now. Through turn 14 he goes. So fun that they're able to open the DRS sort of part way through that final corner because of the way that the banking works. Just something that we don't see anywhere else on the Formula 1 grid, on the Formula 1 calendar, is the drivers opening the DRS mid-corner and just getting that like instant boost of pace while still going through the final corner of the lap. But Gabriel Bortoletto did indeed manage to get himself out of that bottom 5, only just though. Franco Colapinto can't quite. He stays 16th. Charles Leclerc is one to keep a little bit of an eye on, down in 17th place at the moment. is going a little bit quicker through the middle part of the lap is Charles Leclerc. Lewis Hamilton, though, also struggling in the Ferrari, nearly 0.6 of a second down on Lando Norris's time, and they're not even through the final sector yet. Here comes Charles Leclerc to put himself safe, and it's not amazingly safe from Charles Leclerc. It's 14th place. I thought we might see a Ferrari drop out in Q2. I'd be surprised if we see one drop out in Q1, but Lewis Hamilton aborting that lap and dropping into the pits. He's only 11th fastest at the moment. Charles Leclerc could only do 14th. 6.5 minutes left to play out in this one, though, and it is going to be super tight for the Ferrari cars. Don't know why the radio transcriptions aren't working. It's just like fiddle around with it. Ooh, Liam Lawson also asking for the floor of his car to be checked. He's gone right over the bumps as Liam Lawson, and that's why Lewis Hamilton aborted that lap. Dipped the tyres just slightly into the gravel, and was never going to be an improvement on what he had done before, but using a set of soft compound tyres, and might have to go again on a fresh set of softs, both for the Ferrari cars then, without an additional set of soft tyres for the final qualifying session. That's the to and fro of using those soft compound tyres. Sort of guarantees you to get through into that next part of the session, but also then hampers you when it comes to the end of the session, and you need those soft compound tyres to improve in the final part and start as high up inside of that top 10 as possible. Although you could say, not getting through to the top 10 is pretty horrendous for them anyway. Lando Norris, though, quickest of anybody so far, a 1:09.4 from him. Just a 10th, though, Oscar Piastri behind. They feel like they'll probably be pretty happy with those lap times. The big boys that we need to have a little look at, though, Hamilton down in 11th, Charles Leclerc in 14th. At the moment, Bortoleto, Tsunoda, Colapinto and Ocon would be the drivers to fall out of it. If you look at the gap between, say, Antonelli in 5th, because I think Norris, Piastri, Verstappen, Alonso are just kind of on their own level a little bit. Well, yeah, Alonso not so much. You could maybe grab him sort of closer. But if you look at the gap between Alonso in 4th and Ocon all the way down in 19th, it's only sort of 0.7 of a second. 0.7 of a second is, a blink. so little time between the top and the bottom of the pack right now. And this is why Formula One qualifying, at least this season, I think, has been so exciting. Literally one tiny little error can be the complete difference between starting 19th and starting 4th. Like, it is crazy. Lance Stroll, though, out of the car. I didn't realise he'd gotten out of the car. Lance Stroll is out of the car and out of the session. That is really frustrating for Aston Martin fans, because it was looking like this track and this weekend should be one of the better weekends of the season for them. And Lance Stroll throwing it away before it's even really started. He's going to start at the back of the grid tomorrow. Here comes Oscar Piastri to cross the start-finish line, the current championship leader by 9 points from his teammate. Lando Norris just going through turn 4 and turn 5 on your screens right now. George Russell coming across the start-finish line too. Piastri still using that higher line through turn 3, carrying that pace. And bye, Stroll. Enjoy P20. He is unfortunately out. It's done and dusted for him and Aston Martin. Bortoleto, Tsunoda, Colapinto and Ocon, the drivers to watch. And they're actually all coming out of the pits pretty much together. Bortoleto's just joined the track. You can see Ocon and Lawson just coming down the pit straight as well. Lawson's going to join the track now. And then Ocon, Colapinto, Tsunoda all coming out in a little 3. So it's going to be quite an interesting sort of final end to the session for them. I don't know if anyone's coming out after them. I think Colapinto might be... Oh, no, sorry. Tsunoda might be last across the finish line. No, sorry. Fernando Alonso is also coming out of the garage. So we're not going to really know who's out of the session until right at the end of it. Nico Hülkenberg also leaving it late in the session to get out there. Albon wrestling that Williams car. He is right on the bubble. Is Alex Albon 15th fastest at the moment inside of his Williams car. Improves in the first sector though. So 23.7 from Alex Albon through that first part of the lap. Let's see how he does through the middle. This is where the Williams car has felt a little bit off for Alex Albon. He was complaining, especially into turn 1, actually. Alex Albon was complaining a lot about just not really having the feel of the car compared to Carlos Sainz throughout the earlier part of the weekend during the free practice sessions. And James Vowles was talking about how they were slightly adapting the brake balance and where Alex Albon could hit that braking point down towards turn 1. Let's see if it's come to fruition as he comes around the final couple of corners. Albon 15th fastest at the moment, moves himself up to 5th fastest. Much, much better from Alex Albon inside of that Williams car. Puts Charles Leclerc, though, right on the bubble. 15th fastest at the moment. He's gone through the first sector and improved, but so has Gabriel Bortoleto behind him, and it's going to be very tight indeed unless Charles Leclerc can pull out a lap here. He's 4.5, nearly 5 tenths down on Oscar Piastri's time through the middle part of the lap, so already putting himself in the territory of sort of Gasly Alonso, unless this final sector is an absolute masterclass. Gets a little bit of a toe to Charles Leclerc from Max Verstappen, helping out Charles Leclerc possibly, but it's only 9th fastest from the Ferrari driver. Hamilton across the line as well. And Bortoleto goes 13th fastest. So Bortoleto safe at the moment, but all of those drivers behind still to come. Ocon and Behrman and Colapinto now entering the final phase of the lap. Here comes Liam Lawson across the start-finish line. Lawson goes 5th fastest ahead of Alex Albon. Great lap from Liam Lawson. Here comes Ocon. Not good enough. Ocon is going to be out of qualifying there. Behrman also pulls into the pits. He's going to be gone. Here comes Franco Colapinto to go safe just about. Puts Nico Hülkenberg down into that bottom 5. Here comes Yuki Tsunoda to then drop Colapinto out. So Hülkenberg is still on a lap here. It's Hülkenberg or Bortoleto. Which of the two Stake Sauber cars is going to fall out of qualifying here? Here comes Hülkenberg, doesn't improve, and Bortoleto continues his dominance against his teammate in qualifying, and now stretches his lead against Nico Hülkenberg once more. Bortoleto, 15th place, sneaks through into Q2. It's Colapinto, Hülkenberg, Ocon, and Behrman, the 4 drivers to drop out, with Lance Stroll, who put his Aston Martin into the barriers early in the session, and unfortunately couldn't get back out to take part. Tsunoda left it late, did Yuki, but it's managed to get through. Isaac Hadjar also not entirely safe there in 13th place. Carlos Sainz will also be looking at the fact that Alex Albon has found some more pace in that Williams car and be thinking, hang on, I was the quicker Williams earlier on in the weekend. How does Alex Albon do it? Just manages to turn up when he needs to, does the Thai driver. But a very, very solid session. Now we have to look into Q2. Battle for top 10 underway in a few moments' time, but we need to lose 5 more drivers. Gasly is in that top 10 mix. Actually, Liam Lawson up there in 5th place. Alex Albon in 6th. It's looking very, very tasty indeed. Fernando Alonso was only 11th fastest in there as well. Luckily for Bortoleto, Stroll crashed. Very true, yeah. Very true. Bortoleto could have easily dropped out of that because the Aston Martin car has been looking quick. But it's only as quick as keeping it on the track. Hope Verstappen wins. Ooh. It's a big call. Big call. Let's have a little look at the top of the timing sheets, though. Piastri did manage to get out there and get ahead of Lando Norris. Lando Norris set the first flying lap, set the marker down, and then Piastri came back at him with a 1:09.3. So Norris a tenth and a half off of his teammate. But those two, it does just feel like are going to be backing and forthing, aren't they? Twos and fros of the championship battle between those two. It's going to be a little while until we really get to see the true pace of them. Just trying to see why the radio messages aren't working today. But there we go. FIA stewards, an incident involving Tsunoda, Antonelli and Piastri will be investigated after the session, failing to follow race directions. They never give a penalty for anything like that. And yeah, double yellow flags waved in sector 16. I can only imagine that is some gravel on the track, possibly sending out a few of the marshals just to give that a bit of a sweep. Because there wasn't any impact or anything near there. Lance Stroll's incident was much earlier on the track. But we are just waiting for Q2 to get underway. Whilst we're here, maybe hit that like button on the stream. Subscribe to the channel if you're new. That would be very, very helpful indeed. As we start to head into the second half of the year and build a little bit of momentum back into these live streams. Also, if you haven't seen yesterday's video, or even if you have seen yesterday's video, maybe you could just open it up, you know, in another tab and let it run just in the background. Maybe let all the advertisements play, you know, that kind of thing. Yeah, that is absolutely... I didn't even realise that. James Fowles making an incredible point there. George Russell, 0.3 of a second off the pace. Bortoletto, 0.6 of a second off the pace. You know, 0.3 separating basically all of the drivers other than the two McLaren cars. 4 tenths, an absolute maximum, let's call it. It's very, very close. All of the cars absolutely on a knife edge when it comes to qualifying, and anybody can drop out at literally any point if you don't get it absolutely spot on. Will we see any reserve drivers take a seat for a race? Franco does not count. No, he's not a reserve driver. I mean, probably not is the thing, right? The reserve drivers are already there for real extreme circumstances, like when, well, both of the Williams drivers now had to have their appendices out. Appendices? What's the plural for appendix? I have no idea. Appendices. Appendi. They had to have their appendi out. We saw Nick de Vries and Ollie Behrman for Ferrari last year, but you don't really see a reserve driver that often. We saw Nico Hülkenberg at the beginning of 21, 22, 21. We saw him in Aston Martin for a couple of races at the beginning, don't we? Appendices? Appendices. Yeah. I'll go with whatever you say, Michelle. But we're there. The plural form of appendix can be either appendices, pronounced appendices, or appendixes. There you go. But appendices is more widely used. Lovely. 22. There you go, yeah. Can remember when we saw Hülkenberg for Aston Martin. 22. Well, we saw Hülkenberg and Nick de Vries in 2022. So a little bit, but I can't imagine there's another driver that's going to have... Well, you can't predict that, right? That's the whole point. You can't predict when you're going to see reserve drivers. We have got a few more rookie drivers to come. A few of the teams still haven't fulfilled both of their rookie runnings, which is quite nice. But they usually happen in Mexico, don't they? We often see rookie drivers come into the grid for a free practice one session in Mexico. So I think we'll likely see some there, but unlikely to see one during a race, I would imagine. Hamilton coming out of the pits to join Charles Leclerc. Both of the Ferraris deciding they don't want to risk it this time around. Going out early for the Scuderia. Hamilton out second. Charles Leclerc just entering the second part of the lap. Nobody else in the garages looking like they want to move at all. So it's just going to be the two Ferrari cars for a little while. Fine by me. Will Cadillac have the rookie rule applied to them? Yeah, of course. Yeah, you have to run two drivers with less than 2 grand. Oh, sorry, you have to run a driver in 2 sessions with 2 Grand Prix experience or less. So you count as a rookie as long as you've had less than 2 Grand Prix worth of experience. So they certainly will have to. I don't know how they'll do it, though. I imagine because they're using Ferrari power units, they'll have a Ferrari connection there. So, like, they might end up just using some of the Ferrari reserves, possibly. There was a fox on the entry of turn 10. Wow. Well done, Charles Leclerc, for not hitting into a fox. Can I recap what happened before? Nothing too ecstatic happened during Q1, to be honest. Shunt from Lance Stroll was probably the headline of it. I mean, he sort of dropped out early, and then it was just a straight run to the line for a lot of the rest of those drivers. Colapinto, Ocon, Behrman, they came out late, but weren't quite able to take advantage of the track rubbering in, and still didn't quite make it out of the final session. Hulkenberg, the last man across the line, also wasn't able to improve enough to get himself through. Charles Leclerc now going around for the Ferrari, setting the fastest first and second sectors, of course. First driver to go through them, although Hamilton not matching his teammate through the first sector. Hamilton does, though, take the fastest second sector from Charles Leclerc. So Ferrari's just swapping fast sectors at the moment. It's a 110 dead from Charles Leclerc, so nothing really to write home about, to be honest, for that Ferrari car. And Hamilton a tenth of a second off of his teammate, so they're not great flying lap times. They are on used sets of soft compound tyres, to be fair to the 2 Ferrari cars. And yeah, there was the Fox. Just had a little run across the track on the exit of turn 10. Interesting. Love it when we see sort of weird, well, I suppose not weird. Foxes probably do live in and around the circuits, but when we see animals getting involved in the Formula One grid. What was there, a lizard in Azerbaijan? Was that last year, a couple of years ago? George Russell and Verstappen and Antonelli now wanting to get involved with just over 11 minutes of time left in the session. A big queue forming in the pit lane. They do need to sort of leave gaps between them is the problem. You know, you look at where Verstappen and Antonelli are. Verstappen exiting turn 7, Antonelli coming through turn 4, 5, and 6. They need that much gap to not be in the dirty air of the car in front of them. So you see this lining up in the pit lane and allowing the car in front of you to just disappear into the distance a little bit. Groundhogs in Montreal, yeah, of course. Komodo dragon. Was that what it was? I can't remember. Just remember it being a big lizard. Charles Leclerc and Lewis Hamilton back into the pits as George Russell now is going to start to set a flying lap time. Here we go. We are getting some real cars out on track during qualifying now. Here comes George Russell through the first sector. The Ferrari setting the standard at a 1:10.0 from Charles Leclerc. Can Russell go quicker than that? He was quicker than that during the first qualifying session and is quicker than that again. George Russell on a used set of soft compound tyres as well as the Mercedes man as he goes quickest in the first sector, then taken by Max Verstappen, who absolutely storms the first sector, 3.5 tenths up on Charles Leclerc's time just through the first sector alone is Max Verstappen. The purple sector goes to him for now. Kimi Antonelli not able to quite match that. And Yuki Tsunoda just coming around on a flying lap too, so keep an eye on them. Max Verstappen, another stunning Middle sector from him, 0.7 of a second quicker than Charles Leclerc. Starting to come to life now is Max Verstappen. George Russell across the line, 0.4 of a second quicker. Goes for a 1.9.6, but Verstappen looks like he's going to absolutely smash that, and does indeed. It's a 1.91 from Max Verstappen. He is on fresh soft compound tyres, it does have to be said, but still a very, very solid lap time from Verstappen there. That matches or even outdoes what the McLarens were able to do in Q1. Lando Norris coming around to try and beat it now. Norris just completing the first sector. Oscar Piastri also out on track. Lando Norris does go quicker than Verstappen through the first part of the lap. It's a purple first sector from Lando Norris. Piastri just waiting for a few cars to go by before he starts his flying lap, but keeping an eye on both of the McLaren cars. Pierre Gasly, not good enough to go quicker than the two Ferraris. Leclerc, Hamilton and Gasly are all going to be under pressure in a moment as Carlos Sainz comes across the line. He goes 6th fastest. Norris and Piastri are going to go quicker still. Albon comes across the line 5th fastest as well. So it does feel like both of the Ferraris are going to drop into the bottom 5, at least for now. Charles Leclerc coming across the start-finish line once again. Here comes Lando Norris. Oh my goodness. That is a 1.88 a 1 minute 8 second 0.8 from Lando Norris. Goodness me, he is setting the standard this weekend, is the Briton. Lewis Hamilton now down into that bottom 5 and absolutely needs to improve. Isaac Hadjar comes across the line to go 3rd fastest of anybody. Still 6.5 tenths adrift of Lando Norris's time, which just goes to show how quick those McLaren cars are compared to the rest of the field right now. I know that they're on fresh tyres, but still Lando Norris absolutely flying. Oscar Piastri, though, sets the fastest middle sector. Here comes Oscar Piastri round the final corner. Can he go quicker than his teammate? No, but he's within 1/10 of a second of him. Ooh, it is going to be very, very tidy when we get into Q3. Lando Norris versus Oscar Piastri for 1st and 2nd feels almost guaranteed to be within the tiniest of margins. Verstappen in 3rd. Charles Leclerc does improve to 4th fastest, so he gets his Ferrari safe for now. Lewis Hamilton also improving massively through the middle part of the lap, and Hamilton, there we go, 4th fastest for them. Fresh sets of tyres required for the two Ferrari cars, though. That's the thing they were probably trying not to do, because they will want those soft compound tyres for the final run in Q3 after having to use an extra set in Q1, but unfortunately they needed to use those tyres to get through. That's the disadvantage that you put yourself at. Here's Max Verstappen's on board. Ooh, encountering a slow-moving Ferrari. No, sorry, it was a McLaren. Lando Norris in the way of Verstappen in the thoughts of Max. And there's been a lot of traffic throughout the whole weekend, really. Carlos Sainz coming around the final corner. Very close to the wall on the outside of it. But there we are then. Alonso, Lawson, Sainz, Bortoletto, Gasly down in the bottom 5. Again, Alonso's pace just seems to have fallen off a cliff, really. Was so quick during free practice 1 and 2 yesterday. And maybe the Aston Martin team just haven't been able to find any more, and everybody else has been able to get their cars into better positions and find those extra tenths here and there and sort of put themselves on actually better ground than Fernando Alonso. Because you can start ahead of the rest. You can start with the fastest car of the weekend in free practice 1. It's all about how you build through the weekend and build through those other free practice sessions, though. And Fernando Alonso maybe hasn't been able to do that as good as the rest. Although he was on used tyres, actually, now that I look at it fully. Let's not count him out. He was on a used set of tyres, was Alonso. Thank you, Josh. Yeah, I missed that. But I just saw him there in 11th place and was a bit like, ooh, not where I was expecting to see him. Lawson in 12th, Sainz 13th, Bortoletto 14th, Gasly 15th. to be fair, if it was that 5, I could kind of, you know, appreciate that that's about where those drivers are in terms of pace this weekend. You know, you're looking at Norris and Piastri, Verstappen, very likely to get through. Be surprised if Russell doesn't improve from there. Albon has been so consistent this season. It's done very well indeed inside of that Williams car. Hadjar as well has made Q3 almost a mainstay. But here we are then. 3.5 minutes left to go. The cars are now going to make their way back out again. So we're going to get at least one more flying lap from these 15 cars. It is Alonso, Lawson, Sainz, Bortoleto and Gasly under the most pressure to improve, though. My first ever F1 qualifying stream review thingy, lol. Well, thank you for joining us. Appreciate it. Apologies that the AI radio transcriptions aren't working today. Nothing I can really do about it. I've sort of reset it a couple of times. I'll try again once more when we finish Q2 and head into Q3. McLaren is illegal and the FIA is also supporting them. Really? I think that's sort of the polar opposite of what the FIA are there to do. George Russell, fresh set of softs on that Mercedes car. 9th fastest on the used set that he had before. Let's see how he improves through this lap. Russell going down towards turn 1 now. Piastri just making his way out of the pit lane. Is Lando Norris already out? Lando Norris is already out. Antonelli's just crossing the start-finish line. So we are going to see some flying laps from the big boys towards the top end of the timing sheets as well. Keeping an eye on Fernando Alonso, who still yet to come out onto the track. He is waiting for Bortoleto, Leclerc and Lawson to move out of the way in the pits. Alonso under pressure. Lawson ahead of him is coming out as well. Will Norris actually take pole this weekend or fail in Q3 again after dominating the weekend? Woo, scathing. Scathing. But, I mean, fair. He's had a few Q3s in the past that haven't quite gone the way that he wants. I think he does get in his head a little bit sometimes, but I just feel like this track is a very Norris track. It's like when we were in Austria. It was like, oh, okay, the Austrian Grand Prix weekend, I was like 99% sure that Lando Norris was going to be the quickest because he just does so well there so often. Lando Norris, I feel like, is just in a real flow at the moment, and this track is perfect for that style of driving. Kimi Antonelli, only 7th fastest. George Russell, a lot better off, a couple of attempts quicker than his teammate. Yuki Tsunoda stays 9th. Okay. Yuki Tsunoda is having a little bit of a problem here. Oh, dear. Pierre Gasly right on the cusp of what he needs to do. Carlos Sainz is improving on Alex Albon's time in 10th place. What's Tsunoda got? He's not really got much in the bank as he's in the 7s. I thought, you know, maybe he was 6 tenths off the pace, maybe, but Gasly up into the top 10, but behind Yuki Tsunoda for now. Carlos Sainz is going to come across the start-finish line, goes 7th fastest. That puts Yuki Tsunoda right on the bubble. Gasly is going to be out of qualifying, so Gasly is out. Fist bump inside of the Williams garage. They're very happy indeed with that. Isaac Hadjar couldn't improve through the middle sector. Let's see if he can do. Hadjar stays. No, he goes 7th fastest as Isaac Hadjar. Does improve a little bit. Kimi Antonelli is also now under a little bit. Oh, and Albon doesn't improve. He drops out 12th place. That's a big surprise. I was expecting Albon to get back up into the top 10 there. Here comes Gabriel Bortoleto. Bortoleto's lost a little bit of time through the middle part of the lap. So I can't see Bortoleto getting up into that top 10. But here we are. Let's see. Not quite. He matches Yuki Tsunoda's time, does Gabriel Bortoleto. But Yuki Tsunoda set it first. Oh, that is absolutely agonizing. Here comes Fernando Alonso. He was slow in the middle part of the lap. Sorry, in the first part of the lap was Alonso. Actually, Liam Lawson is going to come across the start-finish line first. Yeah, Tsunoda's absolutely gone, isn't he? Tsunoda is absolutely gone. Lawson and Alonso still to come. Lawson goes 7th fastest. That drops Yuki Tsunoda out. Gasly is also out. Fernando Alonso is going to be the last car across the line. 7th fastest for him. And Kimi Antonelli is dropped. Antonelli, Tsunoda, Bortoleto, Gasly, and Albon all out in Q2. Wow. 2 Red Bulls getting through to Q2. Not 2 Red Bulls. Someone want to tell him? Kimi Antonelli, though, just outside of it. That's what I mean. Hundredths of a second. What is that? 200ths of a second? The difference there between Carlos Sainz and Kimi Antonelli. And Albon not very happy inside of that Williams car. No tyres at all. And frustrated is Alex Albon. To be fair, Alex Albon was having a little bit of trouble with that Williams car earlier on in the weekend as well. It has felt like Carlos Sainz has had the better of the Williams car throughout the weekend. I know that Albon pulled out a very fast lap during Q1, but Carlos Sainz able to then do that again in Q2 and get himself into that top 10. So Carlos Sainz is going to start inside of the point scoring places. Isaac Hadjar and Liam Lawson also making their way through in 9th and 10th place, both of the RB cars ahead of Yuki Tsunoda, who drops out in 12th spot. Fernando Alonso 7th fastest in the Aston Martin as well, right in the mix. And then it's the kind of 6 you expect. It's your Russell, your Leclerc, your Hamilton, Verstappen, Piastri, and of course Lando Norris at the top of the timing sheets. And they are going to be battling it out for pole position in just a few moments' time. Let me see if I can do a little bit of a reset on the radio massages. Only problem is there's going to be no radio messages for the next like few minutes because they're all going to be in the garages. But there we are. There we go. I missed Q1, forgot to set an alarm. Oh, it's okay. You didn't miss too much. You missed Lance Stroll putting it in the walls. Ah, Fox, he's asked it again. Who's getting pole, Norris or Piastri? My head says Norris. Norris has been the quicker car, I would say, overall this weekend. And I think suits this track more. So my head says Lando Norris should have the advantage over Oscar Piastri. But it's so close. It is so, so close. Like, it's going to be within 2/10, I feel like, possibly even within a 10th. It is going to be so incredibly tight between the two of them. Oh, Gasly now being investigated. Interesting. Let's have a little look. Oh yeah, that's just popped up. Was it just a lap time investigation though? Yeah, following race time directions. These never, they always get investigated. There's never anything that actually happens because they've always got some kind of excuse. They've always got like oh, there was a car here and I had to slow down, or oh, I had to wait until they moved past me, so I had to go off the racing line, etc., etc. Yeah, they never get any kind of penalties for those. They come up every single qualifying. But you can see there, track limits violation for Lance Stroll was about the only thing that it really participated in the session with, then put it in the wall and we never saw him again. Piastri being investigated. They're all investigated for the same thing. It is when the race director at the beginning of the day says, look, this is the maximum time that you can spend on one lap. It's to try and stop people from massively slowing down in like the final sector, as we used to see, to elongate the gap that they've got to the car in front. So they have a maximum delta time that they have to reach. And a lot of the cars get very, very close to that maximum delta time. Some of them just go over that maximum delta time. But yeah, they always have an excuse of some kind. And the FIA never really give any penalties for it, unless it's, you know, excessively over that maximum delta time. Let's say the maximum delta time was like 1 minute 30 and you did a 1 minute 40, they would give you a penalty for that. But if you know, the maximum delta times are 130 and you did like a 130.5, it comes up as an investigation, but they never give anything for it. Here we are then, Q3. Should we get our final predictions in? I'm going to go Norris, Piastri, Verstappen, top 3. I think that makes perfect sense. I don't know, you know, I don't know if I trust the Ferraris, especially because they haven't got as many sets of soft tires as everyone else. So the Ferraris have got one less set of soft tires, but then you only need one set. You only need one flying lap, I guess. You know what? I'm going to chuck Leclerc 4th place, then Hamilton, Russell. And then I could see it being the order that it's in. Alonso, Lawson, Hadjar, Sainz. I think that's fairly representative of where they've been. Just as I say, like, it's milliseconds in it, isn't it? Q3 already. I know. It's happening. We're there. If you could hit a like on the video, that'd be absolutely amazing. Subscribe to the channel if you're new. If you're watching on Twitch, leave a follow. I always forget to say follow because it's subscribe on YouTube, follow on Twitch. And also, if you haven't seen this week's video, it's the top link in the description. Maybe just open that up in another tab. Maybe just let that play out. Give me another view on a video. The video has been doing absolutely brilliantly in the last couple of weeks, actually. We've had a few videos go pretty well. There's one video that you can maybe just watch the first few minutes of, you know, where I predict the 2026 drivers, because I've decided to go a little bit rogue when it came to the Cadillac drivers. But you can watch the video and see why that was the case. Do I think we'll see any surprise in Q3 like we saw in Hungary? Yeah, where the McLaren cars just completely dropped off the pace. I don't think so, because the track conditions haven't changed as dramatically as they did. The problem that we had in Hungary, and the reason that the McLarens kind of dropped off the way that they did, is because the track conditions changed pretty substantially, which then meant we ended up seeing the McLaren cars fall off the pace compared to what they had before. So it's one of those things, I guess, is if you set your car up for certain conditions and then those conditions dramatically change, you are putting yourself at a disadvantage. But I don't think the McLarens would have set themselves up for any particular conditions this time around. I think they've just got the pace advantage over the rest of the field by a considerable chunk. Piastri and Norris first out onto track, wanting to get that lap time in, get your banker lap in, make sure it's solid, get your time up on the board, and then if there's any problems for the rest of the field, at least you've got it in. That's the idea. Piastri and Norris, though, will also have one eye on each other. Not only will they want to get a banker lap in, they'll also want to get the quicker banker lap in between the two McLaren cars. So it's a give and take kind of run for the two McLaren cars, this one, because you want to be safe. You want to make sure that you get the car through and make sure that you've got that banker lap in just in case. But you don't want to be behind your teammate. So it's like, it's going to be a real battle between Piastri and Norris here. Piastri already starting his flying lap. Lando Norris just coming across the start-finish line. Norris miles ahead of Russell, Sainz, Alonso, Hadjar, Leclerc, Hamilton and Lawson, who are out on track as well. No Max Verstappen. Oh my goodness, that is a stunning first sector from Oscar Piastri. A 123.3 from the Australian. Lando Norris matches it, but is a couple of hundredths slower. So absolutely nothing between the two McLaren cars through the first part of the lap. Here we go. Oscar Piastri, 47.843. A 24.4 through the second part of the lap. Lando Norris just coming around turn 10. This is where Lando Norris had the real advantage over Piastri in free practice, and Lando Norris does go quicker than his teammate through the middle part of the lap. Again, though, it's less than a tenth between them. It's going to be very tight indeed. Here comes Piastri with a 1.8662. Lando Norris is going to be so incredibly close considering their first and second sector times. Oh my goodness. He is 12 thousandths of a second slower is Lando Norris. Oscar Piastri, the advantage in that final sector was the real turning point for him there. Even though Norris had the better middle part of the lap, Piastri was able to hold on to those tyres just that little bit better through the final part of the lap, and 12 thousandths of a second separate the two McLaren cars. I mean, I said it was going to be within 0.2. It's within 0.02 between the two McLaren cars right now. George Russell comes across the line. He's 5.5 tenths, nearly 6 tenths actually, off of the two McLaren cars. Carlos Sainz a second off the two McLaren cars. Like, they are just in a completely different stratosphere compared to the rest of the field. Alonso comes across the line, just about outdoes Carlos Sainz by 0.02 thousandths of a second. Hadjar comes across the line, fourth fastest for Isaac Hadjar. Is very good at this point in qualifying. Here we go for Max Verstappen. He's starting his flying lap. Charles Leclerc displaces Isaac Hadjar for fourth place at that moment. Here comes Lewis Hamilton around the final corner as well. Can Hamilton go quicker than his teammate? Yes, he can indeed. It was looking like a good lap from Hamilton. Again, that final sector just about giving him the advantage over Charles Leclerc. Fourth fastest for Lewis Hamilton as Lando Norris is now making his way back into the pits. Here comes Liam Lawson, and Max Verstappen is going to be the final man to set a flying lap time. Lawson stays ninth fastest. Used tyres, though, for Hamilton, Leclerc, Hadjar, Alonso, Sainz, and Lawson at this point. So Verstappen, fresh set of tyres on that Red Bull car. You would imagine will go at least fourth fastest here. Even more so, unlikely that he gets close to the two McLaren cars, but could certainly spot himself ahead of George Russell here with a good lap. And here comes Verstappen and does just that. Slots into third place and onto the podium positions for tomorrow. If it stays like this, still 6.5 minutes left to go. Hello, thank you for streaming. No problem, mate. Appreciate it. 6.5 minutes left then. And this is the running order for now. So it is Piastri, Norris, Verstappen, Russell, Hamilton, our top 5. Leclerc, Hadjar, Alonso, Sainz, and Lawson inside of our top 10. Very, very tight, though, between the cars. Just looking at Hamilton, 0.8 tenths of a second off. Charles Leclerc, only 100th of a second slower than his teammate. Then all of the cars actually, sort of the midfieldy battle, Hadjar, Alonso, Sainz, Lawson, all quite a bit off the pace, a second adrift or more. Again, though, on some used soft compound tyres. Just a reminder for those of you just joining us, Kimi Antonelli dropped out in 11th place. Yuki Tsunoda dropped out in 12th. Bortoletto, Gasly, and Albon, the other drivers, to drop out in Q2. And then Q1 saw Franco Colapinto drop out in 16th, Hulkenberg 17th, Ocon 18th, Ollie Behrman in 19th place. And Lance Stroll did not set a flying lap time after crashing his Aston Martin car. Only the top 5 have one more lap? No, all the top 10. All of the top 10 will get one more flying lap at this point. And a lot of those cars will also get some soft compound tyres, some fresh soft compound tyres, I should say. So Hamilton, Leclerc, Hadjar, Alonso, Sainz, Lawson will all improve their times dramatically, you would imagine, getting a fresh set of soft compound tyres for the end of this qualifying session. Piastri and Norris, though, it's how much are they willing to push? That 12 thousandths of a second that is the gap between the two of them. Is Lando Norris willing to just risk it somewhere? Because I'd imagine he'd have been right on the edge, even though it was a bit of a banker lap for the both of them. And it's also interesting to see which order they're going to go out in at McLaren, because, you know, you get that kind of psychological advantage, I guess, if you go into the second part of the session with that lead, as Piastri does right now. Lando Norris is going to be looking at that and thinking, where can I find 12 thousandths of a second? Knowing that there'll be places he made marginal errors or places where he could have just got on the throttle that little bit early. But if Max gets P1, I will super chat $500. I am doubtful, but I'd very much appreciate the $500, especially considering I've just moved house. I'm very, very broke right now. No one near the McLarens? Yeah, unfortunately, they just are on a different stratosphere. I know 0.3 of a second, you know, when you say, oh, you know, can I borrow 0.3 of a second of your time? You'd be like, yeah. Like, that is absolutely nothing. But inside of a Formula One car, 0.3 of a second is an age when it comes to qualifying. Here we go then. Lando Norris comes out first of the two McLaren cars. So there we have it. Norris is going to be the first of the McLaren cars to set their next flying lap. So it could be that Norris improves and then Piastri takes it back off of him. Or it could be that Piastri has just done a good enough job and Norris can't beat that 1:8.662. Do I think Max can do something simply lovely in this last flying lap? I think third place is the best that he'll get, right? If Max Verstappen can start in the podium places and finish on the podium tomorrow, I would call that a win of a weekend for Max Verstappen, because he's just fighting in a different championship at this point in the year. The McLarens are all on their own in terms of the drivers' standings right now. Here we go then. Lando Norris across the start-finish line. And let's see what he can do. I'm going to be stuck to the timing screens right now. First sector for Lando Norris, coming around turn 2 into turn 3, goes through that high line in turn 3, carrying as much momentum through the banking as possible. And here we go through turn 5 and turn 6. First sector time from Lando Norris is slower than he was. He has not improved in that first sector as Lando Norris. He's lost 0.07 of a second, which feels like nothing. But again, I feel like it's going to be within a 1/10 of a second or so between those two. Piastri improves in the first sector as well. So Piastri is improved in the first sector. Lando Norris then finds it in the middle sector where he has been strongest throughout the weekend. Lando Norris, he finds that middle sector time. He's 0.02 of a second quicker than Piastri through that middle part of the lap. Here comes Piastri. He's still improved on his second sector though. So Norris has got to put out something brilliant in this final part of the lap. He comes across the line. It's not good enough. It's not good enough. Oscar Piastri is going to take pole position here in the Netherlands. And is he going to improve on his time? Oscar Piastri around the final corner. He comes purple in the first sector and he doesn't even improve. He just sits in first spot anyway. Neither of the McLaren drivers improved on their lap times then. Piastri and Norris just stay where they are. Charles Leclerc and Lewis Hamilton coming around in the Ferraris as well. Carlos Sainz has gone quicker inside of that Williams car. He's up to 5th place in the standings, but both of the Ferraris looking to improve on their lap times. Here comes Charles Leclerc. He goes 5th fastest to displace Carlos Sainz. Lewis Hamilton, can he go quicker than his teammate? Hamilton just coming around the final sector. DRS opens as he goes around the banking of the final turn 14 corner. And he goes 6th fastest as Lewis Hamilton, just behind his teammate. Verstappen and Russell is the battle for 3rd and 4th. Russell has improved through the first part of the lap, and Verstappen actually a pretty poor first sector from him, considering he's gone slower than he previously did, although Russell hasn't improved through the middle part of the lap either, and everybody is seemingly struggling to improve on their lap times. Maybe the conditions sort of 10 minutes ago were just that little bit better for these cars, and everybody is struggling to find those extra tenths of a second. Verstappen goes quickest of anybody through the middle part of the lap. Hang on now, he is a tenth of a second off Oscar Piastri's time. Is he going to be able to find that in the final sector? I would very much doubt it, but never say never when it's Max Verstappen at his home Grand Prix. Here comes Isaac Hadjar to go fourth fastest. Hadjar actually displaces George Russell. Max Verstappen stays where he was in third spot, 2.5 tenths slower than Oscar Piastri. A stunning lap from Isaac Hadjar, though. Take a bow. The Frenchman, once again, the second fastest Red Bull powered car. He's going to start ahead of George Russell and Charles Leclerc on the third row of the grid in 5th and 6th place. Hamilton and Lawson 7th and 8th. And Carlos Sainz and Fernando Alonso in 9th and 10th. Alonso just didn't quite come together for the Aston Martin team, did it? So much promise at the beginning of the weekend on Friday. Just hasn't quite clicked for Fernando Alonso. He's going to start in 10th place. So Piastri, Norris are front two as expected. But Piastri takes pole position ahead of his teammate. I'll be honest, I predicted it the other way around. Once again, Piastri is surprising and is pulling out all the stops when he needs to get that lap time in. Then we've got Lando Norris in second spot, Verstappen and Hadjar behind. Russell, Leclerc, Hamilton, Lawson, Sainz and Alonso will start inside of the point scoring positions. Antonelli, Tsunoda will start on the 6th row of the grid. Bortoleto and Gasly in 13th and 14th. Albon was the final driver to drop out of Q2. He'll start alongside Franco Colapinto, of course, his teammate from the end of last season. They're in 15th and 16th. Hulkenberg and Ocon in 17th and 18th place. And Ollie Behrman and Lance Stroll will be at the back of the pack at the start of tomorrow's Grand Prix. Thank you guys so much for watching. Massively appreciate it. Subscribe to the channel if you're new. Hit a like on your way out. And of course, you know, if you have enjoyed the stream, you can help me out even more. Hit the link in the description. That first link in the description is the video that came out yesterday where I tried to predict how the final part of the season would go by simulating the final 10 races of the season 1,000 times. There were some intriguing turns of events in there. It's well worth checking out. Hit that link in the description. Thank you guys so much. I will see you tomorrow for the Grand Prix, where it's going to be very entertaining. Piastri versus Norris, 10 races to go, and the first of them just around the corner.